Many of you might be thinking, man, should I turn my house into a rental? Or maybe even a nightly rental that people call it Airbnb or VRBO? The answer is, sure, let's explore it. Like everything else, this isn't a yes or no question. This isn't a here's the one answer. This is a sit down and talk about all the options to see what works best or doesn't work, right? So in consideration of whether or not you should look at renting out your home or doing a nightly rental with it, here's some things to think about. Number one, is that the kind of lifestyle you want, right? So first of all, do I want to have somebody else renting my basement or I'm turning it on a daily basis? Is that something you want to do? Well, someone says, hey, if I make money, great. As long as you consider it a kind of like a second job to manage it, whether it be nightly rental, which is so much more, or monthly, it is a second job, right? Just consider that piece. It isn't just, hey, I can make all this money. Secondly, if your property is already financed, realize that making that mortgage payment for 15 to 30 years is something that you're going to realize that your rents are going to make $100, $200, $300, $400, $500. And is that the return on investment you're looking for? Is this, hey, I want to hold on to a piece of property that appreciates, I'm going to sell and make a lump sum and I can have someone else make my mortgage payment for me, or I want to keep it for 30 years? These are all these considerations on whether I should or should not rent my home. When you consider the differences between renting it on an annual basis or a nightly basis, I think there's some real time spent there. I know that it's popular right now to rent places out on a nightly rental. Please consider the fact that there are certain places that allow it by city ordinance and others that are not allowed. I know most people don't quite consider that, but there are true places that say yes and a lot of places that say no, you can't. I'm not the guy to enforce it, I'm just saying we need to be aware of that, okay? Again, if you have someone coming in and staying 1 or 2 or 3 nights, gotta make sure it's clean, like a hotel, contract, security deposit, rent, received, keys, meet them there, make sure everything works. They stay the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nights, wherever it might be, then you'll clean it up and get it ready for the next one. You get out there, you do contracts, so forth. It's just more work. It's a lot more work to do a nightly rental. It does have the option of actually making more money if you can turn it that fast. Yeah, but obviously people say, but I can hire people to do all that. Absolutely. Whenever we have a conversation about renting real estate, it's always ROI, return on investment. And so if you have this property financed, part of your return is going to go to the mortgage. If you're going to have someone else do this for you, then you need to make sure what their fee is and that's covered. And then you're going to make sure that whatever repairs on this particular home, if there's people coming in and out, does that wear out a house more than someone who lives there? I don't know. Just consideration. So what's the return on investment? If someone says, I'll do it all myself because I want more return on investment, then what you're doing is you're giving up your time. So is time or money more valuable? It's up to you. So if you decide to rent out your house on an annual basis, or maybe 2 or 3 years, that's certainly something that's for the long haul and is more steady than a nightly rental. Certainly that person then comes in and says, I'll pay you this much per month, and it's usually a much steadier thing, less time. Has the potential of making less money overall because you're not doing this turning on a daily basis, but you have a lot more time to do other things like other jobs. So it kind of comes out that way. Which one's better for you? It's up to you. I will tell you that lots of times when I have conversations, many of my clients decide against it when they really sit down and ponder the amount of time and energy it takes to do it. If the house is paid for or almost paid for and the immediate return on investment is, you know, $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 versus $100 or $200, it usually lasts longer. When someone is taking care of a rental and they are paying their mortgage and squeaking out $100 or $200, they usually don't do it as long, right? They say, is this really worth my time after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Just considerations. It's not really the mortgage guy to consider that necessarily, but it's something as we talk about when someone says, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. So on the financial end of things, renting out your home. If you're planning on converting your primary residence into a rental and then buying a primary residence, a new one for yourself, so then you have 2 properties, people do that all the time. It's actually very popular. We have our own set of rules and financing just for that. So we're used to doing that and we can do it all day long. I always want people to consider the fact of when you do not sell your current home, then that equity position that could have been a down payment stays there. So the property that you're purchasing, actually you borrow more money because most people don't have the big down payment unless they sell their home for the equity. So you actually borrow more money on the new house, you have to have a higher mortgage payment because your equity is still in the older house. So you try and cash flow it. So immediate return on investment usually is 6s. It usually isn't larger. It sounds fun to say you have 2 houses, and 2 houses are appreciating and slowly going down their mortgage. So a 15-year investment, yeah, makes sense. It actually is good. It's just that most people want that return on investment within 3 to 5 years, and it's not gonna be that much. I hate to be the one that tells you this, but your 30-year loan doesn't really go down that much. There's a lot of interest on the front end of those loans. It's still a fantastic loan. Who can pay a low interest rate like they do on a fixed rate? But it's amortized in a situation with interest that actually is heavy on the front end and lighter on the back end. And so if this is a 3 to 5 year investment, you want to make a monthly income off of it, it's not the best way to go, in my opinion. You're gonna make a few $100 and you're gonna have some time and energy put into it. If this is a 10, 15, 20, 30 year process, yeah, you're gonna have equity built up in your house plus have a monthly income eventually. But I do believe it's very important to sit down with me, with someone like me, and go through all of these options on return on investment, time and energy, and just see if it works into your scenario and what you're hoping to do. When you have real estate, it's almost a living and breathing thing, right? You gotta make sure it is maintained, taken care of. Even the dirt, meaning the grass and the flowers and painting the fence and those kind of things. Make sure it's taken care of appropriately. That is part of the value. A house needs maintenance, needs upkeep. And some of the mistakes I see when people are looking to invest in real estate is they go, here's my mortgage payment and here's my rent, I'm gonna make this much money. And I always say, well, there's 2 things to consider on top of the expenses are, first of all, you have to consider repairs and maintenance. Repairs and maintenance are inevitable, no matter how new your house is. The newer the house, the better, right? If it's been completely redone or if it's brand new, then you have less likelihood, at least immediately, to have to replace things. But the dishwashers and the leaks and the roof and different things, this is a living, breathing thing that needs to be taken care of. So you always want to budget some amount of money in that rent to take care of those ongoing expenses that happen. How much? It's going to be a percentage. It's going to be a percentage, and you want to set aside, and it's not an income, it's just something that's going to happen. Then secondly, you want to consider what's called a vacancy factor. Vacancy factor is when people are completing their rental and then moving into and someone else has to move in, there's sometimes a gap. Now I understand that in today's economy that is not the case, that most rental economies are very strong. I'm just saying we need to consider this as a 30-year loan or a 15-year loan, and you want to consider vacancy factor in case of a down market. When I say down, it usually is a high market where people are usually buying homes or they're not wanting to come into the area and rent for a period of time. So it's just a vacancy factor that can be over the life of this loan to consider. And you want to have money set aside to make that mortgage payment in case someone is not there doing it. The thing you want to be careful of is when you rent a piece of real estate to somebody, their problems become your problems. It's just true. If they lose their job or have a health consideration, they can't pay their rent, that becomes your problem. You have to deal with that. How do I deal with that? So even though they're in the home, you don't want to be the person that kicks them out. You got a mortgage payment to pay and they haven't paid their rent. I know I'm being negative because really, rental real estate, I have some friends that have done it right and they make a ton of money. They have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 properties and it's a cash flow that'll be their retirement forever. But to go from here to there is a big step. It's a big step. And if someone is just trying to go, I'm gonna do one house and just finance it to the maximum, meaning like a 95% or whatever it is and try and make it work, it's gonna be years and years and years. It's when somebody has made a chunk of money on a piece of real estate or in their job and they can invest it in real estate and get that one paid down or paid off, then you can utilize that and it can grow for you. That's the piece. Those are the people that really win in the real estate market is when they have a good equity position on that first initial real estate that they're gonna rent. Then they have that cash flow. Then they have that equity that they can borrow against and move to the next piece of property. If we're max financing, it's just a long haul and it just usually doesn't work out as well. I think it's so critical when you are considering this return on investment and investing in real estate that the numbers are calculated correctly, that all considerations are made to all avenues. That's why you want to come talk to me. Let me help you do these numbers and make sure we do them accurately for you so you have the best information to make the best decision for you and your family's future.